Hi guys.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. So, can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's great. So, today we are going to you are going to have a recap with regards to the topic downstream processes. Okay, along with us today we have Dr. Hazina Hussein from Petroleum Engineering Department. So, I believe that you already go through all the video and also slide presentation via Open Learning. Okay. So, if you have any question with regard to this matter, which is downstream processes, you can straightly ask Dr. Hazina Hussein. Before that, okay, uh, some of you didn't do the evaluations, the lecture evaluations via SSRT, so it's compulsory for you to do all the evaluation, your lecture evaluations, uh, including Dr. Hazlina up to today. Okay, please do please do all the evaluations because I think academic services is monitoring the SSRT. Okay, so without further ado, can we invite Dr. Hazina Hussein to give a recap on the downstream processes? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Asfar. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. So today we meet again. I'm Dr. Hazlina from Petroleum. Okay, and today our topic is downstream processes. We will look at how this oil and gas industry is meeting the end user just like us. Okay, so we'll start by probably Bas, if I am asking everyone if you have any questions when probably you have seen the online learning the videos first regarding this topic. So would you like to ask me questions first? Any questions from any one of you? No questions from Afif. Afif Mustakin, thank you. Jega, no questions. All right. No, a question from Dennis. Thank you. Thank you, Chia. So since there is no questions, no preliminary questions from you guys, so let me start here. The overview of this topic, the downstream processes. Okay, so what are they? Now, what happened is that in general, you will see there is oil and gas industry. And that's where a certain, economy of a country can develop. And that is also where the population of any country utilize the oil and also the gas reserves. Okay. However, you can see from this slide, for the oil and gas coming to the end user, they actually, the oil and gas actually have got through many stages of many tasks, just like starting from planning up to the administration, such as in the reporting. So you can see these many tasks involve many people as well, many personnel, starting from the suppliers, the transporter, up to probably the transportation before the oil and gas can meet us as the end user. Okay, so I would say that in the big picture, the oil and gas industry has been providing, okay, many people the job opportunities. Okay, now with regards to the how should I say the transfer of the oil and gas from its reservoir to the end user, actually it has gone through four sectors. Okay, the first sector is called upstream. Upstream is where starting from the reserve itself, underground probably, okay, where the oil and gas starts being detected and being produced, up to the second sector, which is the midstream. Midstream is basically the transporting the oil and gas resource, and also the preliminary treatment of it. Okay, probably midstream you can see it at the platform with the facilities engineering. That's where the midstreams comes in. Now, the third sector is downstream sector. In the downstream sector is where we get to use the oil and gas basically on its own form, okay, or probably in another form. Later, we will see that the another form, the oil and the gas, once it's being converted into another form, they are known as petroleum products or petrochemicals. Okay, the last sector that is contributing to the movement of oil and gas reserves up to the end user, the last one is retail. Okay, we can only get probably we get to use the petroleum products and also the petrochemicals is via the surface of meeting this retail sector. Yeah. So this basically the overview that I've mentioned just now, how from the oil and gas from its reserve being transported to us as the end user. And by looking at the transportation type, okay, here it has been listed. There are many ways in transporting the oil. Okay, we can use via pipeline, maritime, railway, and also trucks. So of course, it will depend on where is the location of your oil and gas reserve. If it is offshore, then probably pipeline and maritime. If it is onshore, it could be pipeline again, railway and trucks. Okay, so of course it will depend on the location of your reserves or the resource of the oil and gas. Now you can see here probably for the gas itself. Okay, now gas actually very difficult to be transported. Therefore, most of the time for gas resource, it will be transported via pipeline. Okay, on top of that, whether you are looking at the storage part or even the transportation part, of course, the oil and gas, these are flammable compound. Therefore, safety will always comes first when we look into the storage and the transportation matter or aspects of this oil and gas. Now, what is the crude oil? Yeah. Now, before we could actually look at the, the petroleum products and the petrochemicals, we need to understand what is the oil itself. Now, basically, oil consists of many other compounds, and they are a mixture of hydrocarbons. It could be a mixture of a straight chain, a short straight chain hydrocarbon compound, or it could be a long straight chain hydrocarbon compounds, or even a branch hydrocarbon compound. Okay, crude oil also consists impurities. And here you can see from this slide, the impurities, they are definitely not the hydrogen and the carbon element. Yeah, they are other than that. So they are basically our impurities where we do not want them. Now the composition here of the crude oil, they are how should I say? It has its own properties. Okay, one is via the sulfur content. When we measure the sulfur content of the crude oil, then it reflects the property of the crude oil itself. Okay, because what happens is that the properties of the crude oil will depend on our downstream processing later. Okay, especially during the treatment sections where we have to remove the impurities. So sulfur here, you can see sulfur is not hydrogen or carbon element. Therefore, in other words, sulfur here is impurities, right? So that's how I relate it with the treatment section. Now, the sulfur content is reflecting the crude oil properties. So as the API measurement. Okay, the API measurement is the normal petroleum engineering disciplines is describing the crude oil itself. Basically, it is the inversely proportional of the density property, and the benchmark of API value is 10. So if we say that the property of the crude oil or the oil is low, so we say that low density, meaning that the oil is a light oil. So light oil is having API value of higher than 10. While if the oil is have a high density meaning it is actually heavy oil. Okay, heavy oil, the measurement or the index of API, it actually using of an API value of less than 10 API index. Yeah, so there was a question in the earlier groups asking me what is API. So API is American Petroleum Institute Index. Okay, it's just actually a benchmark to describe the crude oil. How should I say? Crude oil properties. All right. So here basically is now reflecting, directly reflecting the title of today's topic. Okay, today's topic, we are actually talking about the downstream processes. So what are they? What are these downstream processes? Now, downstream processes is basically for us to get any other chemicals besides the crude oil and the gas resource just now, besides having that chemical. So and we get these another chemicals or another how should I say petroleum products or petrochemical products is via, say, from here you can see via how should I say, three processes. Okay, one is the distillation. Okay, in the next slide I will explain further on this distillation downstream process. Okay, next one is cracking process. Cracking process is basically we get a new product from the crude oil probably. Okay, but cracking is where we take up the a bigger molecule of hydrocarbon. Okay, remember just now crude oil consists of a mixture of hydrocarbon. Now let us choose the bigger component of hydrocarbon, and then via cracking process we can get a smaller component of hydrocarbon. Okay, cracking is of course most of the time for us to break the bonds of the big molecules. Yeah, for us to break the bond, usually we will require it will require thermal energy. Okay, for it to break the bond. So here it says here uses heat or pressure to basically break the bonds of the big molecules of hydrocarbon, and at the end of the day we could get a small hydrocarbon compounds were later useful for a feedstock for another reaction. Next is reforming. Reforming is also a downstream process for us to get a petrochemical product. Okay, reforming is basically with the original compound is actually a small molecule. Okay, reform is basically now the product is a bigger molecule. Okay, for example, the small molecule, let's say you choose propylene. Propylene is actually a compound with three carbon. Okay, three carbon element. Now, if you take two of these propylene and you react it undergoing reforming process, okay, you can get a benzene. Benzene is one molecule, but it has six. Okay, just now three, yeah. Now it becomes a six carbon content of this compound. So you can see that the molecule becomes bigger. So that is where we get reforming. Okay, after all, after undergoing distillation, cracking, and reforming downstream processes, of course, another major process of this in the downstream processes is the treating or treatment process. Yeah, treatment process, you can't run away from it. Treatment process is, of course, for you to increase the purity of your product, your expected product. So you are going to increase it. That is number one. Number two is, of course, you want to remove impurities. Okay, when you remove impurities, meaning you are going to remove the sulfur content just now. Maybe you want to remove carbon dioxide content. Maybe you want to remove water, and of course, definitely you want to remove anything that is not your product, which is the hydrocarbon component. Okay. This is the first downstream processes, the one that I've mentioned just now, which is known as distillation. Now, what is distillation? Distillation is that, now what happens that the mixtures of the hydrocarbon just now, it has a property where they have a different boiling points, just like this in this purple column. So what happens is that we are going to heat up this crude oil, okay, and the crude oil will turn into vapor. Okay, when it turns into vapor, what happens is that the components now being separated. Okay, being separated, and they will liquefy and be separated out at different stage of this distillation column, depending on its boiling point. And you can see that in each from each outlet, they are at different temperature. Okay, in other words, in general, in this distillation column, the one at the top is referring to a light compound, just like this. You can see here C1, C4 content of carbon in the compound. So light meaning, since you remember here, you heat it up, and inside this column, basically they are all vapor. So meaning, like, if they are actually light compound, very easily move in its gas form. So that's why it can travel up to the top of this column. However, for heavy compound, here you can see a compound that probably contain carbon content of like more than 100. You can see that they are like very heavy. So even though they are in the first place, they are in vapor form, but they cannot sustain long in the vapor form or in the gas form. So you can see that it will probably at this bottom of this column, they quickly turn itself into liquid. So that's why you can see here, forms a thick, black, tough, and resistant adhesive layer. Basically, they are already in liquid form. Okay. So this process is also known as the distillation process, and it is one of the downstream processes. And you can see the product here, okay, where you can actually get from each separation. They are the petroleum products. Because you don't do anything from the crude oil. You don't do anything. What you do, you are just separating from the mixture. So these are petroleum products. Okay. The other one, let me further quick this one. Okay, one moment. Okay, so the other one is petrochemicals. Now, petrochemicals is basically the one that have undergoing the cracking and the reforming downstream processes just now, meaning you have to undergo the reaction, and most of the time they are catalytic reaction. So of course, number one, you get the feedstock. For example, you are undergoing a downstream processes, probably cracking, and you get ethylene. Okay, you get ethylene, and then this ethylene you can't use it yet. Okay, it will become a feedstock for another chemicals later. Of course, depend on the application. For example, you want to have ethanol. Okay, for you, probably you want to produce a hand sanitizer, so you want to have ethanol, so you will undergoing a catalytic reaction for you to produce another product, and these are all the products now. And also, of course, the ethylene itself, they are all known as petrochemicals, meaning they are chemicals that have been obtained from petroleum. Okay, they have undergoing some reaction before you can get them. So as propylene, toluene, xylene, and benzene base. Okay, the rule of thumb is that you can see that all of them have double bond, E and E. It shows that they have double bond. When they have double bond, meaning they are susceptible for further reaction. Okay, I'm a little bit going back. Just now we've gone through what is distillation just now. So you will like ask me now from the petroleum product just now, the price, even though you can see here, you are like you are having one crude oil, right? But then after that you have several petroleum products. Each one actually have different price. Okay, the cost is the same. It's just like one cost for this downstream process, but each one of the petroleum product, the price for the end user to pay is different. Of course, it will depend on the supply and demand. The demand of LPG is like very high, so the supply is like very small. So that's where you have to pay. However, the residue, the demand is like, a lot more than the LPG. And however, the supply is also a lot more from the crude oil mixture. So you can see that the price of this, will reflect the supply and demand will reflect the price of your petroleum product. Okay, you can see this is the price of LPG, but then the price of LPG is actually cheaper than the price of the petrol that used for the car. You can see here. Okay, paraffin is commonly used in a factory, for manufacturing factory. So it's a little bit lower than petrol, but then is a bit higher than LPG. LPG, you can see that it's like, it's commonly used. The price you can see not so much. Okay, end user can always obtain LPG for daily use. Okay, so then just now I've actually introduced to you what is petrochemicals. Yeah, petrochemicals is the one that you get from the cracking here, and also the reforming just now for you to obtain another petrochemical here like this, for it to become a feedstock for another more application. So, and then you will ask me like, so which one? Okay, usually a country will form the petrochemicals. Okay, which one? For Malaysia, which one that you will form? Is it propylene? Is it ethylene? Or should we go for benzene? Something like that. So of course, the factor of the selection for you to produce the petrochemicals depends on the availability. Okay, depends on the cost, depend on the power consumption, and depends on the product to be produced. Okay, because of course it will first of all it will depend on the availability of the how should I say, the petroleum resource just now. Okay, if a country that do not produce its own crude oil, of course, so the crude oil starting is the how should I say, the resource of crude oil is being imported from another country. So that is already incurring costs. And then that petroleum, that crude oil now have to undergo say distillation. So you have broken up into the petroleum products. So that is already incurring another cost. After that, you select one hydrocarbon, okay, the one that you have, separate from the crude oil mixture just now, okay. So you take one hydrocarbon and then you undergo further reactions, either cracking or reforming. So you can see another cost is incurring. So of course, number one, it will actually depend whether the country is producing its own petroleum or not, or crude oil or not, okay. That would be number one. The cost is, of course, whether you have investor of the one that will invest in the refining plants or how should I say, the petrochemical plants, power consumption, and also the supply and demand. Okay. In general, I would say petrochemicals product is where you will see on daily lives. And on daily basis, once you wake up and then you go to your bathroom, all your toiletries are made from petrochemical, and also everything in the house also, they are made of petrochemicals, whether they are all plastic components, whether the pigment color, the paints, the casing of anything, they are from petrochemicals. And when you go out, the road, okay, laid down for you to drive your car probably, or for you to ride your motorcycle, the road is also being prepared or fabricated via the bitumen that you get from the distillation. So you can see that every day you will be seeing the petrochemical products. Okay. Of course, I'm reflecting Malaysia. So in terms of Malaysia, we have a lot or many, a long list of refinery or petrochemical plants contributing to the production of this petrochemical, because you can see, of course, the demand is like huge. I think the list is more than this 23, especially now we have the RAPID project, the Refinery and Petrochemical Integrated Development Project, or the short form is RAPID, in Pengerang, Johor, whereby that is the biggest refinery and petrochemical plants, consisting Petronas company and also other companies. They are actually combining, they are integrating their plants there in one place. So that is the biggest one. Biggest area of refinery and petrochemical plants in Malaysia. Okay, these are basically, you can see the effect of the supply and demand of the years over the years. And you will see that here in probably in 2016, you can see that whether you want to know whether the products, the petrochemical products, they are useful or not. You can see that not just petrochemical products is being used locally or in Malaysia, we are also exporting it. So you can see here in 2016, the amount of petroleum product being exported was like more than 54 billion. So I'm assuming that the amount, this number is actually higher than this. So you can see that the usage or the demand of petrochemical products is also, how should I say, needed globally. Okay, so you can see when you learn in oil and gas industry, we've learned about the production technology, we've learned about these downstream processes. Now, what happens is that for the oil and gas resources to come to the end user, it's not just the contribution of petroleum engineers or chemical engineers. I would say people from the computer also chip in. okay, people from the marketing, the administration, the management, the human resource, the social sciences, people from mechanical, maybe looking at the transportation, people at the, from the electrical disciplines are actually contributing to make sure that the power supplies is also good for the plants, and up to the end user supplies. And you can see that all in all, everyone, no matter what discipline are you in, will contribute to oil and gas industry. I think that's all for today's topic. Any question from you guys? All right. No question from Amar. No question from Danish. Chia also no. Afif. Mustaqim also no. Lee Zhuangzu. Nabil. Thank you, Nabil. Amanda. Okay, Amanda asked a question. How much does crude oil cost? Now, how much does the crude oil cost? Basically, there is a fluctuation for the cost, okay, and the crude oil is basically the cost of the crude oil is being determined by the major petroleum producers, where they've decided in terms of where there is a board, okay, comprises of the major oil producers in the world, okay. So basically that's where they dictate the price for the oil, and usually it will be reflected per barrel, okay. So that's about it. I will say that the cost is fluctuating. Sometimes it goes very high. When it goes very high, meaning the end user have to pay a lot of money for us to use the products, okay, either the oil and gas products or the petroleum products or even the petrochemicals, because it's being affected by the crude oil cost just now. If the crude oil cost is a little bit lower or manageable, then as the end user, for us to get the petrochemical products or even the petroleum products is also low. Okay, so that's how I think I would answer your question. Okay, there's a question there. Wait, I actually confused. What is the difference between crude oil and petroleum? They are actually the same. Crude oil is raw material. Basically, they are both raw material. I will say that we rarely call it petroleum when they are at the reserves. Okay, so when I say crude oil, meaning they consist of impurities still. They are probably immediately from the reserves, so they are not yet undergoing treatment. Probably only pre-treatment is possible, meaning remove of the major impurities and also water content, but they are not yet petroleum. Petroleum, what you is already the one that you already got is already the there's no impurities at all. So I would say that sometimes it's like interchangeable term. I will most of the time I'll go for a crude oil to reflect the impurities or the original structure just now, the original features. Petroleum is when you already probably undergoing a lot more stages of purifying treatment. That's where we will say, okay, the supply of petroleum, the transportation of petroleum. Yes. How how supply and demand affect the oil price? Okay, Zuairi asked me how supply and demand affect the oil price. I think the question is very general, yeah. So I would say that the supply and demand is not just affecting the oil. It can affect a supply of anything, of any product, or even or a service. Okay, if the demand is higher than the supply, of course it will bring up the price. When it comes, Amanda asked a question here. When it comes to the fractional distillation tank, how do they obtain the product from the crude oil? Bitumen, for example, is thick liquid. Would they have to clean the tank once in a while? I think there's a, like one or two question marks there. So let me answer the last question. Would they have to clean the tank once in a while? We call it a column instead of a tank. And the answer is yes. Okay, there will be a maintenance time where they will need to clear the tank when the sludge is too much and how should I say, it's like reducing the flow rate in the pipelines. Okay, so of course there will be maintenance for that, for the distillation column. Okay, how do they obtain the product from the crude oil? Now what happens is that I think, okay, you are referring to the level of sections just now. Okay, so in each tray, there will be the outlet. Okay, let me say in terms of outlet. So the outlet is like, another pipeline that being placed at different distance of heights of the column. Yeah. Now, and that outlets, okay, of course, number one, they will have the pressure gauge to know what is the pressure at that outlet, and also the temperature measurement, temperature gauge, okay, for them to detect what temperature is it, because the temperature will reflect the product that you are going to take out from that level. Yeah. So what happens is that when you take out from that level, okay, in the column, actually there's a tray. Okay, the tray will basically slowing down the flow of the gas, and there will be and the gas will that already reached its boiling point. Okay, that is where equilibrium reach, and basically the component will turn into liquid. And the liquid will be collected. There's a big tray there. The big tray is actually covering the whole column, and the big tray will collect the liquid that liquefy at that particular temperature and pressure, flowing out the column, and further, of course, it will have to go through another treatment process. Okay. Of course, you will simple question. Yeah, you will ask me, how do you take out how a liquid flow? That will actually reflect to a fluid mechanics, meaning, of course, you will require a pressure gradient where it allows a flow of a liquid. Of course, there will be a pump installed for it to flow the product at a certain flow rate. Okay, just to answer your questions further in detail. Yeah, Amanda, I hope you understand it. Okay, very good, very good. Is that all from you guys? Any more questions before I pass back to Mr. Asfar? Thank you, Muhammad Amar Noat. You're welcome, Muhammad Amar. Navinjit Kaur. Thank you. You're welcome, Navinjit. If there's no questions, then I think I'll pass back this BBB to Mr. Asfar. You're welcome, Jagan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hazlina. Thank you everyone for your time. So if you have any question, you can jot your question at the ULens, okay? So I repeat, please don't forget to do evaluation for each of the lecture that already teach you, including Dr. Hazina, via the SSRT. Okay. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome.